Liam. I run a digital agency / Webflow studio called Code and Wonder with my partner Alessia over there. We've been going for about 9 or 10 years. So we originally started doing just full stack and WordPress websites, I guess. But then about 3 or 4 years ago, I don't know when the shift was, and I don't know why. 2020? 6 years ago? Christ. We got a lot of interest from Webflow. A lot of people started talking about it, clients were asking about it. So we kind of jumped ship. No, not jumped ships, but we focused a lot more on Webflow. Told Alessia to jump on Webflow. You've got to learn this. And I think it's been doing really well. And we tend to push Webflow pretty hard with like a lot of CMS, a lot of design system thinking, a lot of custom code. And that's really where I think a lot of the most interesting challenges occur. And so, yeah, this talk won't be a polished talk. It won't be, I have all the answers for you. It'll just be this is what we've been working on recently. And yeah, so if you've been working on something in Webflow and you've thought there must be an easier or cleaner way of doing something, hopefully this talk will be useful. So if I'll just bring up our site, sorry, so this is our site, Code and Wonder. And then I've got a little script here to remind me, maybe not. Bear with me 1 second. Just get everything set up. Okay, just looking for my script. There we go.
Do you need to extend the slide?
No, it should be all right. So yeah, I just want to use this talk to talk about Webflow code components, basically. So just a quick show of hands, who actually uses code components at the moment? Nice, few people. Anyone do more development or consider themselves like front-end developer, JavaScript, that type of stuff? Cool. So I guess the first part of this talk will just be going over what code components are, how you can use them, etc. And then the second part, I'm hoping we can dive into AI and basically my workflow of how we can create code components using AI, which is what I predominantly do at the moment. So yeah, let's start with something we've all experienced with Webflow. I mean, it's great at producing pages, designing layouts in a very visual way. It's great with working with CMS content. And we've probably all run into the issue of reach some sort of edge or limitation. And we're like, maybe it's some sort of chart or analytics-based thing, or a custom media player, for example, and we need to use some sort of external library, or maybe it's just something relatively mundane, like a normal component like a form that needs some sort of state or logic, and we always have to write some custom code to include that equation or calculation. Typically, I guess with Webflow, you just use some sort of package, external attribute type thing, or you'll find some custom code in a blog post somewhere. And yeah, you'll throw it into one of these custom code boxes on the page or on the global page. And you're like, great, this is working, that's fine. And you'll ship it, client's happy, but then 6 months later you might go back to it, client wants to change, and you're like, crap, where the hell did I put that code? How is this even working? You find the code, you find the codes, and you're like, damn, who even wrote this code? You have to figure that out. So I guess that's always been a trade-off with Webflow. It does all this beautiful visual designer that clients and marketing people and yourselves can use, but it has lacked in that department. So, so I guess Webflow Code Components is basically Webflow acknowledging this fact and realities of this, and their attempt to probably keep them separate and keep the designer as intuitive as possible by basically keeping all the code separate and trying to reduce the amount of code in custom code that gets lost. And they haven't provided a better solution apart from code components at the moment. So I think it's a step in the right direction. But it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. So from a designer or Webflow developer or even a marketing team person's perspective, it's great because you can just use components how you'd always use them. You can just select them they have this library area where you just drag them over and pop them in like you would any other element or component. And that works really well. And for the people that build them, the front-end developers who write a bit more JavaScript, TypeScript, that sort of stuff, it lives outside of Webflow. They can manage that. They can version control it or whatever. And so that separation of concerns, I think, is the right approach for Webflow, especially when these code components have all these props. So you can customize all the props, all the settings panels and stuff. So basically, anyone who's familiar with the Webflow interface can use a code component. And it's entirely up to you to what that component is and what it does. So a lot of you may be familiar with DevLink. Well, maybe you probably heard of it, not used it. You've used it?
Used it in production. It was a bit of a nightmare.
You're probably the only one I've met who's actually used it. No one else? So I guess it was an attempt at trying to figure this out, trying to sync Webflow's internal components to an external source, having your code base separate, which I think was great. But what they did really well with it, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were able to sync those changes back to Webflow. So I guess code components is kind of like the natural evolution of that. You can sync them back into the libraries that they have, but also you have all these other APIs available to you now that you can use. So props, specify various different formats, and even slots. I think don't know too much about slots. I come from a React background, so I know React a lot. So it's just components inside components inside components. But I think this is still quite early days with Webflow. But I think that's possible. I put a note in here about Framer, but I can mention that. So this is initially how Framer was kind of built, but I guess because they came to it at a later stage. Webflow started when React was probably still in its infancy or probably wasn't even around. But Framer adopted this infrastructure from the beginning where everything's built with React, everything's a component. And so adding a custom layer on top of that was super, super easy. And it's good to see that Webflow is now doing a similar thing and kind of competing with them in that area. So one thing I wanted to go through was just an example per se. So we recently did a project for a law firm that Ben on the front row here did an incredible job overseeing this. And whilst we weren't going into it thinking that we would need to use code components for anything, and to be honest, the times when we have used code components, it has been aesthetic more recently. And so one idea that came up was these bubbles that Ben put together. We were like, oh, we got to animate these. We got to make these look good. And that's where code components came in. I wanted to build them in a way that meant EIP, if they wanted, could customize them how they wanted. They could change the color of them. They could change the size of them, the amount of them, even the physics. Probably went overkill, which is why Ben created another wrapper, which is a bit more controllable for the client, which made complete sense.
That was about 4,000.
So yeah, and it has some cool effects with some mouse interactivity and that sort of stuff. And this is, yeah, just one example of what we're using code components for. And I think it brings a bit more fun. Well, it makes it easier to build these types of things on Webflow, because previously you might have to just put in some custom code somewhere and it would get lost, and there'd be no way for the marketing team to play around with it. If they wanted to add this on a different page, it would just be a lot more difficult. So code components improves that a lot. Blah, 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 blah. So now, yeah, basically, I don't actually write any of the code for these myself. I mean, they have documentation. It's probably very boring for a lot of people who don't write code. But in the past 2 or 3 months, I think most of my workflow is just AI and Claude, specifically Claude Code. It's ridiculous how good it is, and it's quite frightening how good it is. Maybe I should have mirrored this, I think. So yeah, I was hoping perhaps I could do just a little live demo of creating a code component and showing you how easy, quote unquote, it is to do with Claude Code. I might just see if I can mirror quickly.
Oh, just quickly, sorry.
So just a note, the EIP site that Liam just showed with all the different bubbles. So wherever you see bubbles, that's actually the same component, just with different variations of it. So that just shows how flexible a code component can be. And the client can just drag it in and have it wherever they want on the site without having to copy and paste any code, because it's all wrapped into the code component itself. Sorry, Liam.
That's all right. I cannot see the option to mirror, so I'll just...
You can decide which way it goes, whether it holds itself center, like how many go on there. It's really cool.
Say it again, sorry.
The chat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
We got some people on the line.
Yeah. So you can control like whether it holds itself or like how many or how much they collide, or the color and the color of the background and stuff. We got given some guidelines from a branding agency, so had to match those pretty exactly, and yeah, Liam smashed it. It's awesome.
Does anyone know how I mirror? Usually it comes up when you plug it in. It would just be a lot easier.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Stop extending.
Choose control.
Entire screen.
Yeah, that's it.
Sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So typically how I go about doing this is come up with, typically how I go about most things code generation AI is I'd start a new chat with ChatGPT. I tried this with Claude earlier, and it's actually not that good at generating prompts for itself for Claude Code, which is quite funny. But this is how I'd usually go about it. I'd be like, I would like a timer countdown Webflow code component, and then I'd be like, can you help generate a prompt for Claude Code? I'm sure OpenAI loves this, but can you help generate a prompt for Claude Code, ensuring the latest docs are used? Now! Please. And then I would put the docs in, and then see what it churns out. And usually, it's quite a largish prompt. Some might say too verbose for humans, but for AI, it's incredibly valuable. And it will basically scan the documentation to ensure it's getting the latest APIs, etc. And once it's done all that, it will just spit out a prompt, which we can then put into Claude Code. So yeah, I don't know if you're, I mean, prompt engineering is a whole field in itself at the moment. And this is probably the very basic version, but if you're not prompting to prompt, I think maybe it's a good time to start. So yeah, it's generated this prompts with goals, deliverables, components, blah, 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 some stuff you probably don't even know. It's also suggested some prompts, and it's still going. And yeah, so what I'd do is I'd just copy this. I'd go straight into Claude Code and just paste it. I'm just wondering where I am. Exit. So yeah, this should be fine. I'll just create a new new project, cd new project. It's good if Claude has its own instance. Open Claude, we'll paste that in. And more often than not, one prompt goes very far. You might have to permit it to do certain things. But it will go extremely far in building it like 80, 90%. And hopefully, it depends. Sometimes you can spend more time debugging it, obviously. But I think the scaffolding that it does is just very, very impressive. So we will let it do that. And in the meantime, we need a Webflow site just to put it on. So code components are housed in this library situation that Webflow has set up. The only problem with them currently maybe is there's no intuitive way to actually push your code components to Webflow without a terminal. So that kind of is not. Oh, we purchased them.
I was going to ask, Captain, what's the difference between using a terminal and the Claude app? Where you can use Claude Code in the app.
So Claude Code is just an app it's an app built for the terminal, basically. So you can use any terminal you want.
There's a web-based version of the Claude UI with code on there as well.
Right.
The difference is you can't run. You can't run the app locally on the web-based version. So yeah, slightly better workflow if you use the
Yeah, I guess the reason
Just sorry to interrupt. Just a quick time check. You've got about 5 minutes. If that's
Okay,
it,
5 minutes.
Yeah. Maybe
let's-
10 at the most, but 5. Let's try. Yeah.
Let's. We do have one we prepared earlier, so it's fine. But yeah, I guess okay, it's done, which is good. So the real command here is this one. That basically pushes it onto Webflow. So we'll just check what it's done, all files created, blah, 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 blah. Quick start. And sometimes you can just tell Claude to run these codes for you. But I had difficulties doing that previously, but we can give it a go. Please run those commands for me. And sometimes if a CLI app requires some sort of interactivity, like saying yes or no, Claude might fall behind. But there's a lot of permitting. Found the correct versions. Depending on how strict it is, it will generate, you'll have to do some fixes. And if this doesn't happen in a minute or two, I'll just take you to the one it generated earlier.
Can I just ask, how often... Sorry. Okay. How often are you using this versus just like building stuff from a Figma file in Webflow? Like, what are you kind of... Is this your first port of call to be like, oh, this is a little bit complicated. Why don't I try and do this using Claude? Or are you trying to do it yourself and then coming to this? Or like, what's your workflow?
I use Claude Code for everything. Like, I don't write any more code. Like,
Is that just recently, Liam, or when did that change?
last month or two, I don't know what they did with their models, but it just became ridiculously good. So much so that you don't have to spend as much time debugging, and like it doesn't become a whole annoying process. You're like, oh, that's not great, do this. So many times it just one-shots it and does a really good job. And sometimes I just find it incredibly tedious to just go into a code editor and make the change myself, even though it'd probably be a lot quicker. So here, Claude Code has authorized, has set up an authorization with Webflow, which is required to push your code components to Webflow. It's just done that automatically. It's figured it out. That it needs authorization. It just opens the browser for you. And now it's deploying, it's pushing the changes, trying to.
Do you actually? I'm not a specialist of React, but I played with it a bit, like in the past. A big thing was that you had to update your component base quite regularly as the system evolved. And for Webflow components, how does that work? Like, do you have to update anything at any point, or no? It's just...
No, you shouldn't have to update anything apart from the traditional standard security things that are posted every so often with React dependencies.
That's what I mean. Like, you have dependencies evolving, and you have to monitor that in your projects going forward.
Yeah, ideally you'd have someone that is monitoring the packages. Whoever built the package. That can be quite tricky if you just like put a brief out there. I need a code component. Build this. There's no way to really know unless you're in that world, which I guess you could say is a flaw, because you won't see that in Webflow anywhere. But I imagine that could be something that Webflow does and displays some sort of security helpers, etc. Okay, this is boring. So we'll go to one we did earlier, and this is the code component. So we generated a little timer and countdown that Jimmy requested. And it's intuitively added all these props, whether or not we want them all. But it just shows how much it is capable of doing, and we can just remove these after the fact, or before, when we're writing the prompt, we can make it as specific as possible. But I quite like that it gives us so much flexibility in what we want. So this just uses all the usual Webflow props, change font size, show controls, start, stop. I think what this perhaps doesn't demonstrate is the slots example, but that's just, oh, maybe expired content. Expired content might be a slot where you can put in, you can drag in a div and it displays, after the countdown is done, it will display what's in the expired contents slot, I guess it's a slot. I don't know. And then, yeah, you just publish and it's live. And whenever you make a change or want to make a change, it seems to have done it, which is good. You would just go to Claude and be like, can you add a font size prop? And then it will just do it. And if it's already running like Webflow Library share automatically, it will just do it for you automatically. And so you can just not touch any code, build whichever code component you want. And yeah, it's extremely powerful. And then Chris mentioned Webflow Cloud earlier. And so code components are slightly different, but you could then store it somewhere like GitHub, and then connect GitHub to Webflow Cloud, and then you have your own apps on Webflow as well. But I guess that would be another talk. But yeah, this is basically how I built the Bubbles app, and more recently made a little fun component on the blocks page. This is framework. So it's a little Easter egg. So this is just a code component.
Ah, I didn't spot that before.
And you can, yeah, just play around with that.
Nice.
And I guess this is all possible without code components, but much more of a pain in the ass. So code components helps.
London Webflow.